How do you manage productivity in general practice? In this episode, myself and Andy are going to discuss what we do individually to try and help us be more productive when we have multiple hats. Because let's be honest, most GPs, most clinicians, most people in working in primary care do have different roles, and that can be a bit confusing. So, how do we stay productive? How can we help you stay productive? We're going to talk about that right now as we tech enhance your primary care and learning. Hello, HGP learners, and welcome to this episode as myself and Andy are going to be talking about productivity in a portfolio career. That's probably a good name for this one, isn't it, Andy?
That's good. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think this will probably also be useful for people who aren't GPs, maybe they're professionals working in other sectors who have to wear multiple hats and juggle multiple projects and working for different organisations and so forth. So I think it probably have quite broad appeal as well. So quite excited to have a talk about this.
Definitely. So to give you an idea of the structure, myself and Andy have come up with 3 key things that we do that we felt help us in our portfolio careers and basically trying to help us be as productive as possible. We've gone for completely different things. That's the first thing I'm going to say. So you are going to get a variety here. Some of them are concepts, some of them are physical things. You know me, I like my actual objects and kit and stuff and things. So we're going to talk about those and how we use them, how we find them functional, and basically how you can start using them as well. Shall we start off with you first of all, Andy?
Yeah, let's go for it. I mean, first of all, just echoing that observation, it's really funny how you've gone for more physical things. And I'm obviously a bit more kind of conceptual framework sort of thinker, so I've gone for more sort of frameworks, but I think the two will go really well together. So we'll dive in with me first. So I've picked something called building your own second brain. So it's a bit conceptual. There's a book all about it called Build Your Own Second Brain by I think the chap's called Thiago Forte, and we'll link to maybe the book on an affiliate link, perhaps Gandhi, or the website. And basically, the concept is that in concept modern lives and careers, there are so many pieces of information that you need to manage that are flying around, and actually not being on top of information is a big source of anxiety for us. And actually on the other side of that, actually being really on top of your information management, so not necessarily your time management, that's important too, but managing your information can really make you a lot more productive, make you feel calmer, make you seem like the smartest guy in the room sometimes, if you get it right, the person who has their finger on all of the information. And I guess we're whizzing through these, so really people need to buy the book. I think I've spoken to Gandhi offline about this a few times, but
many times.
There are 4 kind of parts to this, really. So he talks about the code methodology. So there is capture. So the idea is that you want a reliable system for capturing information that you'll look at again. So I use Apple Notes on my phone to capture something. Have an idea, see something, write something in my notebook from a meeting that I want to surface later or process later, take a photo, Apple Notes. And then organize. So at the end of the day, normally it's the beginning of the next day for me. Sit, look at those Apple Notes, read them again. It's really nice actually for just reinforcing a bit of learning. At least it's going to go past your brain twice. And if you leave it in your notes until you've processed it a few times, you can actually, remember things a little bit better as well, which is good. But then find a place for it. So for me, what I do is I organize my life based around meetings. So I have a folder structure that is in Microsoft OneDrive. I have a folder structure that's structured by my different roles that I have, because portfolio working. So I work as part of GP Federation. I do some work for Place. I do some work for Primary Care Network. And I do some work for the practice, and I do work for GP Learning as well. So, and then within each role, I basically have meetings. So I just create a folder with the date on and the name of the meeting, and anything that relates to that, I put in there, the agendas, the papers. And that's the best way I find for finding information again in the future when I need to look at it or when I need to process it. So they say distill. So as you're reviewing those notes that you've captured on Apple Notes, the idea is that you only keep what's going to be useful, because there's a lot of rubbish that you tend to kind of keep, and you might want to tidy up those notes as well as you file them. And then a big part of him is express. Is why are you managing your information? It's actually to do something with it. To surface that in the right place, to include that in written reports or emails, or pass that information on to other people, or apply it as you see patients and as you do your job. So make sure that you express and show your work. So So as you can tell, I'm really enthusiastic about it. I really, it's almost life-changing, this concept and having a look at that book. And I don't say that about many things. So I've enthused a lot there, Gandhi. have you, have you, are you going to have a look at this, Gandhi, do you think, or?
So I kind of have in the past.
Yeah.
I don't ascribe to it as I think as much as you do, and as much as our fellow colleague Tara Humphreys from the Business of Healthcare podcast does, because I know you both geek out on it
Oh, it's
every
great.
time you talk about it and stuff and things. But the concept is definitely there. You need some way of capturing information. You need some way of organizing it. You need some way of filtering and organizing it a bit more effectively, and you need a way to be able to get and understand that information quickly when you need it. So I definitely understand the principles of it. I think I probably don't go as depth as you do in terms of how it's structured and things. I'm a bit more freeform and stuff.
Mm.
But I think you need somewhere basically to dump the stuff that you keep, because trying to keep it in your brain is where it becomes a problem. And I've very much realized that I have things that keep going around in my brain's ideas and stuff, and it's not until I've either captured it somewhere or written it down, more importantly, write it. There's a physical thing about writing and stuff, that it won't stop going around in my mind until I've done that and stuff. So having a way to do that is really important. And my first thing is actually the way that I do that. Do you want
So
me to go
Gandhi,
into it now, or do you want
yeah,
to?
yeah. So let's hand it to you. So what's your first tip for productivity in 2024?
So for productivity in a portfolio career, and this is very much a primary care focus one, I'm going to talk about basically the OneDrive ecosystem, Outlook, that kind of stuff. And the reason for that is, number one, it's a free ecosystem that all of us in the NHS have access to because it's part of our working life and stuff. But in particular, the Outlook and the OneDrive aspect of it can be effectively that knowledge dump area that you have. The really cool thing about it is you can share that information with relevant people and you can categorize how you share that information. But it also then links up with other parts like your calendar, like your email, that kind of stuff. And when you can get down to using your emails more effectively, it can really make your life effective. So one of the things I have a specific folder in my email that is my to-do folder. And that's the thing that I stuck everything that I don't have time to deal with straight away into. So then when I've got some dedicated time to do things, I will make sure that's when I try and do it. And it keeps it closer towards the top so I can do that. So it's not kept in my head. And that makes a massive difference to me in terms of my productivity and stuff.
Gandhi, I love that tip for email. I'm always looking out for tips for emails, really, because keeping on top of those is one of the biggest challenges of
It is.
modern life. And I remember a few years ago trying to do this inbox zero thing,
Oh,
but that it was always difficult. But actually, I guess because there was always stuff that still needed action, you didn't have time to do. But
yeah.
actually, if you process your emails, I guess you can get to zero if you're moving those that you really need to do something about into a to-do folder. And there's something really motivating about getting to zero, and feeling
Mhm.
on top. So actually, that's something I'm going to have another go at, Gandhi. So I'm glad that you've mentioned that.
And I think there are loads of other tools you can use to help you do that. So I know one of our colleagues in our Christmas episode that we went through, Lydia talked about Superhuman, I think it's called, which is an overlay system that integrates both Outlook and Gmail and various other platforms, but then supercharges it all as well. I still use Gmail for a lot of things. So for EGP learning specifically, I use Gmail, and that helps me from that point of view. But I still have to live in the NHS world, which is why the OneDrive ecosystem is actually quite powerful in that sense. So understanding how to use that ecosystem is my tip for your productivity. And that includes calendar blocking, which we'll come into in a sec.
I was just going to say, and I think we've mentioned this a few times on the podcast and YouTube, but I think NHS England made a really great move
Yeah.
making the Microsoft Office 365 suite available across the NHS. I think that was absolutely fantastic because everybody that you work with on the NHS all have access to OneDrive. They're comfortable sharing their
Mhm.
folders with you, their files, provided they've got the technical know-how. But you can show them, how to do that. How to use MS Forms for engaging with staff and engaging with patients. There's the whole suite there, and the whole organization is on there. And I think that was just a really great move for
Yep.
productivity from NHS England. I can't applaud that enough, really. I think, and the sort of thing that historically I wouldn't have necessarily seen them do. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's fantastic. Are we moving forwards, Gandhi?
Yep. So your number two thing in terms of what would help
My number
with
two.
your productivity?
Yeah, so it's another conceptual thing, really. So it's about this concept of deep work. So it's another book that people might want to read. So there's Deep Work by Cal Newport, who's a professor at MIT in in America, and he does a podcast on productivity, which is really, really good. So his whole kind of thing is about trying to find time to focus on deep work. So what he says is actually we spend a lot of our time sort of firefighting, doing shallow work, and moving from one piece of work that relates to one set of stakeholders and what a particular skill set and a particular set of information to another, and we're constantly switching what we're working on. And actually there's a switching cost. We don't get much done if we're kind of working superficially. And there's also something about working on what really makes a difference, which relates to the 80-20 rule and these things that we've talked about and may talk about in a minute. And he actually talks about being very specific about creating the right time of the day or in your week, the right environment that lacks distractions, that makes it easy for you to do deep work, to really focus on things that will really make the difference for your career, your organization. So these tend to be things where you go deep and you spend quite a lot of time, really researching something, really pulling a plan together to move something forwards, really thinking hard about a problem to come up with an innovative solution. So really getting really deep is what he talks about. The book is really good, and his podcast is really, really fantastic. I'll just share the screen again, Gandhi. There we go. So this is really good. So a tip, if you want to get to know Cal Newport, have a look at this video. So it's basically how to reinvent yourself and master productivity. And he kind of does an overview of a lot of concepts that are important to his work. It's an hour and 20 minutes, but it's a good watch, and there's some case studies at the end. So that's a tip, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or you really want to get organized for 2024, he talks about like the whole system of doing that within deep work. So that's my second tip. There we go.
It's fun. I think having dedicated time to do that kind of stuff is really important. So I guess that leads into my second one, which is the whole concept of using your calendar more efficiently, the blocking of time, but also how do you make that happen, and using automated tools to help you do that. So I'm not going to specifically comment on platforms and things because there's a variety out there. There's things like Calendly, there's things like Harmonizer, which is one of the ones I use. There is a built-in feature of this in Outlook itself as well, so you can start to use that. And there's the booking feature, which is part of the Teams package. Some areas have access to and some areas don't, but basically it's the concept of using a web link that you can send to people, and when they click on that, it shows them the availability of time that you have. And that's because you've already blocked out parts of your calendar for the stuff that you need to do. So for example, on my personal calendar, when I'm in clinic, that's blocked out because I don't really want people interrupting me when I'm in clinic and things. When I'm doing specific meetings that I know I can't be available for, they're blocked out as well. I have comfort time stuck in there as well. So you know how people go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, no breaks, and actually particularly with the power of remote meetings and stuff, that's really easy to do. And how many times have you had a day full of remote meetings where you've just been wiped by the end of it, even though you've probably been sat in a chair for the whole day and stuff? But so building in comfort times around that is really important. That's one of the things that these links allow you to do. But because it's all in my calendar, A, I know I've got to do it. B, I've got a designated time for me to do it. And C, by using the booking mechanisms, it helps to prevent the double booking nightmare that can be an absolute real problem when you're doing that. And I know it's something I catch you up on sometimes, Andy, because you have a habit of double booking at times.
I do. And there's just so much going on. And I'm a devil for accepting an invite as well. When something entices me, although Outlook does warn me. And
it does.
You're absolutely right. It's similar to the concept of what's it called? Sort of calendar blocking or what's it called? Time blocking, calendar management, where you just get really, really serious and just put, all of your commitments on your calendar, even things like your clinics, as you say, you know that you do those, you're not going to forget about them, you're not going to miss them. But actually having them on your calendar gives you a better overview of what you've got in your day. So when you look at your day and you think, I've got this to-do list, all of these things that I think I'm going to be able to do, actually blocking the time to do those on your calendar makes you a lot more realistic about what you can achieve in a day, and then you don't feel completely defeated when you overestimate your capabilities and your time available, put too much on your to-do list. So I'm becoming a fan of calendar blocking as well, Gandhi. It's a good one.
Hoping to convince you to join the dark side or the light side. I don't know, whichever one it is and stuff.
Oh,
But hey,
I'm trying, Andy.
no
We're at the
problem.
halfway point, aren't we? And there was a little sort of a bonus comment that I think we probably both wanted to make at some point. So maybe we'll do that now. And that was about being platform agnostic, because you sort of touched on it there, really, where you said actually there's lots of tools to do this calendar functionality, and actually the tools aren't necessarily that important. What's important is implementing the process, rather than the tool. And I agree completely with that. Just going back to second brain, whether you're capturing your thoughts in Apple Note or OneDrive or Word, on a text file, it doesn't really matter. The main thing is actually that you're doing the system. Because a few years ago, when I was beginning to get interested in productivity, and there's a big rabbit hole to go down in terms of the different apps and tools, I think I was guilty of, and a lot of people are, of focusing on the tools and trying to find the perfect tool that will unlock and make me productive. But really it's about you changing a little bit and adopting the right behaviors and the right processes. So I think that was the bonus bit. You got anything else to say on that, Gandhi?
You say that, but my last one, I'm going to argue, is the ultimate tool to help you do all that stuff.
Well, sometimes they're just so good, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll see.
But we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Whose turn is it?
So you're number 3.
My number 3. Okay. So I was going to talk about, it's another concept. It's actually part of Cal Newport and his deep work sort of ecosystem of ideas, really. And that's about multi-level planning. And I think we all do something similar when we're thinking about, our personal and professional lives. But he's got a number of videos looking at this concept, which are do a Google search for multi-level planning video, Cal Newport. But he really talks about getting serious about planning those different levels of your life. So he talks about taking an overview in terms of overall life, life goals, career goals, looking at the next 5 years, how are you going to work towards those over the next 5 years? What does the next year look like? What do the quarters look like? What does each month look like? And I've done that really for the first time this year properly, just looking at the different months of the year and actually what is already in my calendar for those. So I've got visibility of the year to make me more effective over that year. And then each month just thinking about, okay, what do I need to achieve? And each week and getting down to each day. And it actually doesn't take as long as you would think to sit down and plan these things. The new year's a great time to think about some of those higher level, longer term goals. And then just thinking about, last thing on a Sunday night, first thing on a Monday morning, just being really proactive about planning your day, making sure your calendar's blocked. You can use that time to have a look at the notes that you've accumulated on your Apple Notes or your collection system and organize them a little bit, as well as doing this this multi-level planning to really work out what's happening in your week. And I think that it helps you make sure that what you're doing actually connects and contributes to the longer term goals and things that you want to do. And they might not all be professional as well. It's important to be holistic and think about those personal and family goals that you might have. So multi-level, multimodal planning. Maybe people need to go and read a bit about it, but I think the concept is quite clear. And I'd encourage people at this time at the start of the year to do a little bit of multi-level planning.
Sounds interesting. So I mentioned that mine's a little bit more physical, shall we say? And I've just sent Andy the link because I realized I can't physically show you because by doing so, it's going to mess up everything in my setup and stuff. So hopefully Andy's going to be able to bring it on screen. It's in WhatsApp, yeah. So mine is a physical object. And the reason why it's a physical object, and I was surprised at how much difference this made to me, but it is basically a whiteboard. So it's a little whiteboard I have in front of my keyboard, and I use this at home in my home office where I am now. I don't use this in practice because I think CQC may have a bit of an issue with it and stuff, but it's simply just a glass whiteboard, and I have my little whiteboard pen, and whenever I need to jot something down, I jot it down on here. But the reason why I like this, there's a couple of things. Number one, it keeps my desk a little bit tidier because as you can see, it's got a little section underneath where you can stick things through. It saves me having all these pens and everything else that I need. And I just need a whiteboard pen. I can rub it out, which is really powerful as well. But I've also got different sections that I keep. So I've got one for my PCN stuff and things that I have to do. As I run my meetings, I jot down on another part. This is the stuff that I need to remember to ask during my meetings. When we do the live streams, I jot down things I want to ask Andy or other people. So I'm not having to scramble around and find pieces of paper and all that kind of stuff. It's got a little tray to keep my phone in, as you can see. So my phone stays there when I'm doing other things, and it provides me with a third screen if I need to. It just has so significantly changed the way I do things that I just could not mention it. And I really do find this one of the weirdest. I'm a tech guy, and this is low tech in its entirety, but it has massively changed the way I do things for the better. And it's made me so much more productive. And like I said, I don't keep that stuff in my head anymore. It's down on paper. And because I've written it down, it's more productive.
So Gandhi, you've been going on about this for a few months actually, and I have a few questions. So one of the advantages of digital tools is that they can live in multiple places. They're on your phone, they're on your computer at work, they're on your computer at home. This presumably just stays on your desk at home. Does that limit the functionality? Maybe you put it in your bag and take it with you.
No, so it stays where I am. So it does limit in some aspects, but what this helps me more with that deep stuff you were talking about. So when I know I've got stuff I need to do, it's right there in front of me. I create a really quick checklist. This is what I need to do. I need to get done in this session. I'll tick them off as I go along. Like I said, when I'm doing meetings and stuff, I capture what I have to do live in the meetings, and then it outputs from that. I will put into the OneDrive, Google Drive ecosystems that I have for each of the two different parts of my life. So EGP learning and primary care and that kind of thing. So I will then add those to other places as I need to and summarize them from that basis and stuff. And things like, dictation, ChatGPT have sped up some of those kind of capturing aspects of things. But this, it just makes the in the moment stuff so much easier for me. And I was really surprised that it did that. That's the key thing. As I said, I'm a tech guy, and it's a non-low tech version.
It's low tech, isn't it? But I guess pen and paper's technology. A few observations. It looks really nice, and it's got a glass surface, and there's something about having products that feel nice to use and that are tactile and good quality. So I guess it ticks that box. And the other thing, to be honest, I'm with you. One of the things I carry now is a notebook. Just pen and paper. And I've had an iPad before with an Apple Pencil and all sorts of other things, but there's just something about the freedom of pen and paper, and that you can touch and feel it, and you can take a photo of it afterwards. So put it in Apple Notes, and it recognizes your handwriting, so you're not really losing out. And there's something about actually being in a meeting and jotting things down, and there's something about thinking on the paper for me, just kind of getting information on there. And sometimes you can kind of see and understand things a little bit better, draw little diagrams. So there is something about that freedom of pen and paper, and it looks like a really good device. I'm not sure I've got space for one here myself.
I guess the other thing, it's really quiet as well as you're writing on. So unlike pen and paper, which you can scratch and you have to press quite firmly sometimes with pens and that kind of stuff, because it's whiteboard, it's really, I almost hold it at the end of the nib to write with and stuff, so people don't realize I'm writing and they can't hear that I'm writing at the same time. It's these tiny little things that I didn't appreciate, like I said, would have an impact. It just changed the way I do things so significantly, and it kept me on track for some weird reason. I still don't quite understand how it's done it, but it has. I love it. I think it's amazing. It's my number 3, probably my number 1, but yeah.
You certainly talk about it a lot.
A lot. So just like Andy talks about second brain a lot, I talk about my glass notebook, whiteboard and stuff a lot, loads and things.
Good. So I guess that's got to the end of our 3 tips. I guess just to summarize, I guess mine were Build Your Own Second Brain by Thiago Forte and the associated podcast and YouTube videos and resources online for kind of getting your information in order, because we all know about time management, but this is about information management. I was talking about the deep productivity concepts from Cal Newport, about making time to do sort of really meaningful, deep work that really moves things forwards. And then I was talking about multi-level planning and really being purposeful about goals and aligning what we do day to day with those goals. And what were yours, Gandhi?
So mine was the OneDrive ecosystem, or basically a ecosystem for you to capture all that information in, whether it's OneDrive, Outlook / Google Drive or whatever, you need a system. Number 2 was the concept of calendar blocking and particularly automating that process using whichever platform you want to. And number 3, my glass whiteboard that was just game changing and stuff. So there you go. Those are my 3 things for productive portfolio working.
Good. And I guess people out there might have their own tips and ideas and things that are useful. And as ever, the EGP learning community and ourselves really like geeking out on productivity. So I think we'd be really interested to hear what people are using.
Absolutely. So if you want to tell us what your top tips for productivity are, let us know down in the comments below. Alternately, you may want to check out one of my hardware pieces of productivity that I've reviewed, which is the Stream Deck. Andy still hasn't seen this episode yet. I know that because I haven't finished filming it yet. But when it's out, it'll be available here. Alternately, you can check out some more content from us right here, as we're always here to help tech enhance your primary care and learning. We'll catch you next episode.